everybody. I'm going to talk to you not exactly about my research topic, but on a related topic that I thought could be relevant to you all. So, are plant-based food products depriving us of vitamin B12? So I start off with, what is vitamin B12? It's the most complex vitamin and one of the most complex non-polymeric molecules in existence. It is important for the fitness and function of our nervous cells, our blood cells, and through its involvement in DNA synthesis, it's important for the function of all cells in our body. Vitamin B12 deficiency can be divided on the basis of its severity into severe and mild. Severe deficiency has consequences of megaloblastic anemia and severe neurological disorders which are often irreversible, while mild deficiency presents with non-specific symptoms such as lethargy, forgetfulness, and depression. Severe deficiency is caused by impaired transport and/or metabolism of vitamin B12, which is caused by rare genetic disorders and some autoimmune diseases. Mild deficiency is caused by extended insufficient intake from diet. In order to treat or prevent severe deficiency, mega doses of vitamin B12 are administered either orally or intravenously. For the treatment or prevention of mild deficiency, sufficient intake from diet is recommended, and currently the value is set to 2.4 micrograms a day for adults. Since the mild deficiency presents with non-specific symptoms, it can be only detected through assessment of B12 levels in blood serum. However, this marker is considered inaccurate. However, these markers or the values that are considered are still under debate. However, I have some values from global deficiency that were measured with this B12 serum levels, and I hope you can see that. Can you see that in developing countries, mild or subclinical deficiency is quite widespread, and it's the most prevalent in children and breastfeeding women, where it reaches the values of 50 to 80% of population affected. When considering North America and Europe, there are some discrepancies because as far as Europe is concerned, vitamin B12 deficiency seems to affect only elderly population, while in North America it's distributed among the whole population, and it is about level of about 15 to 35%. Since I don't have data for Finland, because it's, well, not available, or at least I couldn't find it, I thought I would make a little exercise for you. I have 10 common sources of vitamin B12 on these pictures. On top you can see the B12 content per 100 grams of these products, while at the bottom you can see the amount of vitamin B12 found in typical portion. Now, if you look at these products and think, are you getting enough vitamin B12 in your diet? If you keep in mind that the transport system allows an uptake of 1.5 to 2 micrograms per meal, which means that you have to get your vitamin B12 from at least 2 meals each day to get the recommended value of 2.4 micrograms per day. To make it easier, I'll give you an example. If you, for example, eat a cup of yogurt for breakfast and then have a piece of salmon for lunch or dinner, you get enough vitamin B12 that day. However, if you, for example, eat a cheese sandwich for breakfast, then have meatballs for lunch and chicken breast for dinner, you're not getting enough vitamin B12. Another thing you may have noticed is that all of these products that are in the pictures are of animal origin. And there's a very good reason for that. Vitamin B12 is produced only by some species of bacteria and archaea. And animals get it from their gut bacteria or by eating other animals. And that's how vitamin B12 is present in animal-derived food products. However, plants do not need vitamin B12. And in order for plant-based food products to have any vitamin B12, they have either have to be fermented or contaminated with B12-producing microbes, which is the case for example, tempeh or some mushrooms. I will digress for a moment because this is what I did my PhD on. So my collaborators and I worked on in situ fortification of plant-based food products with vitamin B12. We had the assumption that since vitamin B12 is industrially produced by microbial fermentation anyway, since the chemical synthesis is very complex and costly, it involves over 70 steps and produces multiple isomers. We therefore use the Propionibacterium freudenreichi, which is a food-grade bacterium commonly used as a secondary starter in production of Swiss-type cheeses such as Emmental. We were able to show that this bacterium makes large amounts of active vitamin B12 that can be used for in situ fortification. I emphasize active because in order for vitamin B12 to be considered active, the lower ligand has to be dimethylbenzimidazole. There are several other possible lower ligands occurring in nature. However, those ligands have a low affinity to the glycoprotein transporter, the intrinsic factor present in our stomach. And therefore, if there's no affinity, then there can be no uptake. And if there's no uptake, the vitamin cannot have activity in our bodies. So with our research, we're able to show that Propionibacterium freudenreichi is so far the only candidate with proven active vitamin B12 production. Moreover, that production was observed for all of the strains tested. However, there are still problems or challenges to be overcome. For example, the vitamin produced is stored inside of the cells. There's need for addition of cobalt in order to achieve large amounts of vitamin produced, and that's currently forbidden by law. And finally, there's the concern of a cheesy flavor, which comes from the propionic acid produced by the bacterium. Therefore, it requires more research. However, until then, does that mean that plant-based food products are depriving us of vitamin B12? Well, I need to clarify that when I say plant-based food products, I don't mean fruit and vegetables. I mean plant-based substitutes of meat and dairy. Some of the examples available on the Finnish market are visible on the slide. Do you recognize them? Do you eat them? Well, other Finnish people seem to. There are results from Finnish statistics that report that between the years 2012 and 2016, meatless households have increased by 3% from 8 to 10.5% in the capital area and from 4.6 to 7.5% in the rest of Finland. Additionally, in a study done by TNS Kantar, if you're familiar, 30% of consumers report that they actively seek meat substitutes in their diet, and 67% say that they eat them occasionally. Finally, SOK reports that in the years 2016 to 2017, the sales of their meat substitutes has doubled and currently constitutes 5% of their meat part sales. Does that mean that Finnish people are developing vitamin B12 deficiency? Maybe. However, do not worry yet. Many of those products which you saw on the earlier slide, the meat and dairy substitutes, they are fortified in vitamin B12, even though it is not currently mandatory. However, I would like you to be aware of the risk, because when you eat those plant-based substitutes of meat and dairy, make sure that you get your vitamin B12 from other sources in order to prevent vitamin B12 deficiency in Finland. I would just like to thank my collaborators from the Department of Food and Nutrition, where I used to work, and the Institute of Biotechnology, where I currently work. And that's all I wanted to present. Thank you for your attention.